You're not supposed to know all the answers when you're 20. This is the age of self-discovery. That's why I just listen, I have so many girls in school that I'm constantly giving advice and helping with solutions for whatever's going on in their lives. And I have several who graduated and now they're married and in South Africa. And I was saying, the 20s are so much about figuring yourself out, so that if you marry immediately in your 20s and your spouse is also figuring him or herself out, it makes it more challenging, because that's what it is. It's those years of figuring out what you want to do or not want to do. And I will say to all the 20-year-olds in the house, can I hear you? Yes. This period is about figuring out what you want to do. This isn't the time where you're supposed to have the ultimate dream job. You're supposed to do what you have to do until you can do what you actually want to do. Those days are coming. Right now, you need to eat. Get out your mama's house and pay for your own house. That's what you need to do. That's the priority. Yes, on the hierarchy of needs: shelter, food. Then, the 30s are about experimenting, solidifying the plan. In my 30s, I came to Chicago about the time that I turned 30 years old and started AM Chicago in Chicago. Everybody told me I was going to fail. Everybody said it was a landmine, but I knew that signs in my life had indicated it was time to leave Baltimore, and that I was willing to take the risk on myself. And you know why I'm so rich today? Let me tell you. It's because I took the risk for myself. Everybody said I was going to fail, going to Chicago. I said, I don't believe that, because something inside me feels like it's time to move from Baltimore. I was 29 years old. That feeling inside that says, time to go, time to get out of this, time to move on. And so, the reason I became a wealthy person in America is because I was so underestimated. Nobody believed it could work, including the people I was signing a contract with. Because if they'd known we were going to make this much money, they wouldn't have given me 50%. That is the honest truth. If they had known, they would have never. They so underestimated me. But something had happened. As I told you, I believe in signs. So early on in Chicago, I got a letter from a woman in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This is before we ever even were syndicated. And this woman said, watching you be yourself every day makes me want to be more myself. That's really one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. Not, I want to be more like you, but watching you makes me want to be more myself. And I thought, whoa, something's happening here. The people are watching this little local show, and they want to be more of themselves. So I believe if somebody in Chicago and somebody in Michigan feels that way, somebody in Oakland and San Francisco can feel the same. So I believe. So after I signed the 50% contract, I said, well, this is pretty good. And by the time that contract was over, I didn't just have 50%, because every time I negotiated, I took a little more, and I took a little more, I took a little more. By the time we finished 25 years, I was a 92% stakeholder. Took the risk to believe in myself. So the 40s and 50s were great for me. Anybody in here turning 40? Gonna be in the 40s? Fantastic. Around 44 it gets good. Sort of ripen and deepen, it gets good. And then the 50s, any 50-year-olds in here? Oh yeah, I see it. 50s, Maya said this to me, baby, the 50s are everything you've been meaning to be.
Yes.
50s are it. That's when I finally lost the disease to please. And now, standing here in the center, 66. This is what it looks like. I am filled with contentment and satisfaction and purpose, and I feel actually stronger than ever because I am well, and it is well with my soul. Because I've earned the right to be just as I am. And that's what I want for everybody here, to leave knowing the right to know your life is yours. I've reached that moment where Derek Walcott talks about in his love poem, Love After Love. He says, the time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, over here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another. The stranger who knows you by heart. It's time to take down all the old letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, keep you living in the past, the desperate notes, and peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. That's where I am, in the middle of the feast. And I'm here to tell you that my life, just like yours, has been marked by so many trials, some suffering, but I'm here. You're here. Doesn't matter what has happened, you're here. That's the miracle of your life. Mine was such a miracle. My mother and father were only together one time. Once. They had sexual intercourse. One time. Everybody said I was a mistake. Everybody said I was illegitimate. Everybody said I wasn't supposed to be here. My mother was wearing a poodle skirt on the day that he decided he wanted to find out what was up under there. That's what he said. That was the extent of their romance. She has a different story, but he says she was wearing a poodle skirt. That's her, my mother, and I want to know what was under there. Poodle skirt, for those of you who are young. One of those big wide skirts. When you turn around, you can see what's up under there. So, I lived with my grandmother for the first 6 years of my life, and I don't have any memory of my mother living in that house. I grew up in this house with my grandmother. That happens to be my mother. And I'm looking at my shoes, notice. I'm not thinking about her, I'm thinking of, first of all, when I first saw this picture, I had no memory of ever knowing my mother at this age, because she was a part of that great group of black folks who came from the South and went to the North. So I just remember being with my grandmother for the first 6 years, and eventually being sent at 6 to live with my mother. But this is like a little shotgun house, wooden frame house, and I love swings on the porch to this day because I grew up with that swing, and slept in the bed with my grandmother until I got sent away. And I used to have dreams of living in a brick house, y'all. So when I got sent to live with my father, and I pulled up to his house, this is his house on Arrington Street. I've since retired my father and my mother as soon as I started making money. But this is the house that I grew up on in Nashville. And when I pulled up to the door and realized it's a brick house, I was like, oh, I must be rich now. I could take that whole house, which is about 1,000 square feet, and sit it in my current living room. But that's what dreams are made of. And that's why dreams evolve. And I would tell you that when I was living in Baltimore, I had a producer, because I've been in TV since I was 19. I went to a producer friend's house, Arlene Weiner, who was at the time the richest person I ever knew. Arlene had a Mercedes and a BMW and a Corvette that belonged to her son in the driveway. I pulled up and went, whoa, Arlene not only lives in a brick house, Arlene is rich. Whoa, Arlene, I didn't know you were this rich. Arlene's husband was a prominent lawyer. I go inside the house, and looking out from Arlene's kitchen, I saw 6 trees in the front yard. And I went, whoa, these rich white people, they got cars, they got trees.
Wow.
If ever I get me some money, I'm gonna get me some cars, I'm gonna get me some trees. Do you know that I was standing in my kitchen a couple of years ago, and I was looking out the window, in my kitchen window at the sink. That's my kitchen window. And there were the trees. There were the trees. I hadn't thought about those trees. That's what I mean by setting the vision and the intention. I hadn't thought about those trees in years, because this was my 20s when I first went to Arlene Weiner's house. I was making tea at the time. I finished brewing the tea and I went outside to the yard, and I had this picture taken of my front yard, y'all. So here's the deal. I had the vision for the 6 trees. The power, the force of life, the divine intelligence, the entities, the forces that we call God by all names in the universe, had a bigger dream. I could dream of 6. The forces of life could dream of 3,671 trees. How do I know? Because I hired a tree counter. That's what you do when you're rich. I started out trying to count on myself, and I go, this is ridiculous. Let me Google tree counter. Somebody came and counted my trees. Yes, I have to say that the vision that you hold for yourself, whatever that is, whatever that dream is today for you, my dream was trees. Whatever that dream you have, I promise you, if you surrender the dream to the higher consciousness that is you, that abides in you, that lives above, around, and through you, amazing grace will come to your life. That's my life theme song, Amazing Grace. It's brought me safe thus far, and grace I know is gonna lead me home. So I know you can't be in this room and over 12 and not have had some struggles. I don't know yours, but I know you had them. And sometimes what holds us back is holding on to the past. That's why I was so moved by what Kate had to say about forgiveness. I know that forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. It's giving up the hope that it woulda, shoulda, coulda turned out any other way. It did not. And the sooner you can move into accepting wherever you are right now and making the decision and the commitment to move forward, the better off you will be. So for a long time, I held on to this idea of what I wanted my mother to be. My mother could never be what I needed her to be, and I knew this because everybody who's had a complicated relationship with their parent, you can feel it inside yourself. You can feel when things are not right. So when I left my grandmother at 6 years old, I was sent to Milwaukee to live with my mother, whom I really did not know. I did not know. I walked into the house where my mother was a boarder in this woman's house named Miss Miller. Miss Miller wasn't white, but she could pass for white, which is worse. So I could feel instantly. So I'd lived with my grandmother her whole life. I'd never known anything about race or racism or colorism or anything. I could feel the instant I walked into Miss Miller's house that she did not like me because of the color of my skin. And even though my mother was a brown-skinned woman, she had given birth to another child who was light-skinned. And I could see Ms. Miller's interaction with that child, and I instantly felt, I'm the wrong color. So on the first night that I moved from my grandmother's house, the first time I'd ever been away from home, the first time I ever was developing a relationship with my mother, Mrs. Miller said, that child can't come in this house. And they made me sleep out on the porch. And my mother in that moment did not stand up for me. She didn't say, this is my baby girl. She can come in the room with me. And something inside my 6-year-old self knew in that moment that I was going to have to fend for myself, that it was going to be me and God. Thank God my grandmother had given me Jesus. So, growing up in the church, I comforted myself that first night away from my grandmother, sleeping on the outer porch, not allowed into the house. I comforted myself by talking to God and asking him to send angels to protect me. I was so afraid. And so there began my complicated relationship with my mother. I never felt that she really wanted me. And I realized that she was dying in 2018, the end of 2018. That was the truth. She never really did want me. 2010, I hear from a woman who says that she is my long abandoned sister, that we share the same mother. And I'm like, what? She shows up and my mother denies that she ever had this child. But apparently she did have her and had given her up for adoption. And my newfound sister, Patricia, decided to have a DNA test and prove that she was related to us all. My mother, until she was bedridden, had no kindness to offer Patricia, really, because she was upset that she'd come back into her life. And it turns out that Patricia, who just showed up in our lives in 2010, was the person who was left to care for my mother as she was dying. So I get a phone call from Patricia, who says, you better get here quick, because she just hugged me. She goes, it was a real hug too, so you better hurry. I go to try to set up the hospice care and all that. Anybody who's had this in your family, you know. And I realize that my mother is fading. She's still coherent, but she's fading. I had a speaking engagement with Michelle Obama in Chicago. She was just starting her book tour. So I went to Milwaukee, then I went to Chicago, then went to Chicago, then I went back to Milwaukee, second time. And I'm sitting in the room with my mother, and I know I'm supposed to leave the next day for Boston, and I'm knowing that this is going to be the last time that I'm with my mother. And I need to say the things that haven't been said in 60 years. And I'm Oprah Winfrey, who has spoken to everybody about everything in the world. And I could not think of one thing to say to my mother. I am reading the hospice manual for how to talk to your loved ones. And it says, Share the memories, things they taught you, all the good times. I can't think of one. I can't think of one. So I leave, and I know that in leaving, I'm being a coward. But I go and I speak in Boston, and as I'm getting ready to go back to California, I say to myself, the voice says to me, the voice that we all have, that lives inside of all of us, it said, you are a hypocrite. If you don't go back and close this thing, you will not have a day's peace. So I get back on the plane, and I go back to Milwaukee, and my mother is sitting in this little room where it's 87 degrees. And she's watching Steve Harvey on a loop. And Days of Our Lives. So I just sit in the room with her, sit in the room, trying to come up with what can I say? So I give her water, I feed her ice, I do all that. Sometimes we talk about what's on the screen. And then I go to bed that night and I am praying hard. Lord, help me figure out what to say. And do you know that I wake up the next morning, Lord, help me, Lord, help me, help me, help me, help me, Lord, help me, help me, help me. Jesus, come on. And I accidentally hit my phone, and up comes Mahalia Jackson singing Precious Lord. No accidents. But I thought, where did that come from? So I think, oh, maybe I'll go into the hot room. And I'll play this for her. So I walk in the room and I say, would you like to hear Mahalia Jackson? She said, yeah. I start playing it. And then I have this idea to call my friend Wentley Phipps, who is a famous gospel singer. I say, Wentley, would you please sing Precious Lord to my mother and pray for our family? And he starts to sing a cappella at his kitchen table. Baritone voice, Precious Lord. And he finishes the song, Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weary, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. I could see that the singing of the song directly to her has caused an opening, and I can see her eyes begin to fill with tears. And then he prays for our family and says, no fear. No fear, Miss Lee. Just peace. Just peace. So we hang up with him and I say, so how was that for you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? It gave me a way in, and she said, I'm feeling, I don't know what I'm feeling. I said, well, are you afraid? She said, no, I'm not afraid. I said, are you looking forward to seeing people you loved who've gone? And she said, yes, I want to see my mama. And I said, I believe she'll be there for you when you're ready. And I want you to know, came to me, that all my life, I thought I needed a different kind of mama. And now I know that God gave me exactly the mama I needed to be me. And I know that all those years when you were told you shouldn't have kept this child, you shouldn't have had this child, you should have given this child up for adoption, you should have had an abortion, when all the people were telling you not to have this baby, you had the courage as a single Southern 17-year-old woman with no skills and no education to keep that baby. And I want to thank you for keeping this baby. And I said, had you been any different, I would have had to be different. So all the things that I felt, the days I thought you were treating me like a bank and you didn't see me for the person that I was, I want to thank you for that. Because everything you did, I know that you did in the moment because you didn't know how to do better. And if you'd known how to do better, maybe you would have done better. And so I bless your life, Mama, and I give you peace. And for the first time in my life, I said to my mother, and I love you. And when I tell you, it set me free. It set me free. When you leave here today, if there's somebody in your life that you need to get the record straight, you need to release so that you can be liberated into the future that you desire to claim for yourself. Forgiveness is the way. Forgiveness is knowing that it couldn't have been any different. It's never going to be any different. And that the people who raised you did the best they knew how at the time, and even if it wasn't their best, that was all they had. And whatever they had, has made you who you are. It's made you stronger. It's made you stronger. And this is what I know. We all long to be well, to find balance. We all want more. And I'm here to tell you that whatever was happening to you was also happening for you. And nothing that has happened to you has been wasted. Every time somebody let you down, they were not there for you. Every time you felt like you didn't get what you should have. Anytime you felt rejected, you lost control. Every time the doctor said, yes, I'm afraid it is cancer. This is what was happening. You were building strength. And strength, times strength, times strength, times strength, times strength, times strength, times strength equals power. And you are powerful beyond measure. Just look at how powerful you are. Universal energy, the forces of light, all the names that we use to define higher consciousness in the universe is ready to move your life in a new direction. And you know that is true, because that's why you're here. You know that is true. You know there's more, and you get to decide what that direction's gonna look like. So what are you gonna do with this one wild and precious life, said Mary Oliver. What will you do? The fact that you're here means that you are ready to be well. I thank you, San Francisco. I want you to leave here today. I want you to claim your power. Don't waste a minute wondering if there's more, because there is. As long as there's breath, you get to define it, you get to dream it, you get to manifest it. This is the key word, manifest. Are you ready to activate your vision? Yep. Yes. Say it out loud with me, San Fran. I can.